Alright, so today I'm going to be doing a tune-up on my STIHL BR350 backpack blower. I have a new air filter for it, new fuel filter, a spark plug, and a carb rebuild kit. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off this cover so I can get to the air filter, and then probably take all this plastic off so that I can get to the carburetor and we can remove that and start rebuilding it. Alright, so I got that plastic cover off and the air filter cover off. Now what I have to do is just remove the two screws in there, and then the carb should come right off. I kind of broke off this little spark plug boot from the wire here, so I gotta see if I can get a new one of those or maybe solder this one back on. Alright, so you actually had to take this whole cover off in order to get to that, but I did that. So now I just gotta disconnect the throttle cable, that's right in there, and all the fuel lines, and then we should be able to just take the carb right off. Alright, so I got the carb taken off here. Now what I'm going to do is spray the outside of this down with carb cleaner so that when I take it apart, none of the dirt from the outside gets into the inside, and so after I spray it down, we're going to take it apart. Alright, so the carb's all cleaned off. Now what I'm going to do is remove this screw, and then we'll go under there and replace the components inside of there. Alright, so now that I have this cover off, this black sheet here, we have a new one of those that comes in the rebuild kit. And then there's also a little tiny screen down in that hole there that we'll remove with a pick, and there's also a brand new one of those in the rebuild kit as well. So we're going to replace those. Alright, so now that I have that diaphragm off and the gasket off, I can see a little bit of gunk around here, so I'm going to spray this off with carb cleaner, and that's also going to help soften up some of this gasket that was left behind. Alright, so I just sprayed that off, cleaned it off as best I could, and then sprayed carb cleaner through the little hole there and there. And so now what I'm going to do is spray carb cleaner through all these little holes inside of here, as well as remove that little screen. Alright, so as you can see, I have the new diaphragm and gasket installed on this piece here. Now we're just going to go ahead and put it on all back together. But you want to make sure that most, if not all, the carb cleaner is dried out of these ports and out of the mating surface with the gasket, because the carb cleaner will eat through anything rubber. So that means gaskets, it's going to eat through that, and then it won't eventually seal. Alright, so now I have the other side of the carb opened here. We have a new gasket and diaphragm for this side here, and then we have basically everything new that moves in there. You just have to remove that screw with a torque spit, and then we should be able to replace everything. Alright, so I got everything all cleaned out and taken apart, so now I just got to reinstall all the new parts. Alright, so I got all these new parts installed in there, and the new diaphragm and gasket put on there, so now I just have to put this thing all back together, and then make sure that there's no dirt inside of here on both sides, and then should be able to just put it all back together. Alright, so I got the carb installed with all the fuel lines and linkages. I also put this cover back on just to hold everything in place. So now the next thing I have to do is figure out this magneto and swap out the spark plug. Alright, so I looked online, and apparently this little cap that goes on the top of the spark plug here, just kind of, that little hook on the end just kind of goes right into the center of this wire here, and it can come off. Like, you can take it off, so I didn't really break it. But yeah, I just have to put that, you just squeeze that in there with some pliers, and then just like spray WD-40 all over this, and then you can push it through the boot going through this hole. Alright, so I got this boot on. You can see I don't know how well you guys can see that, but the coil is in there, so we'll be able to pop that thing back on. The last thing we need to do is just change out that fuel filter in there. I already pulled it forward. It'll be kind of sitting back in this part of the gas tank. I just stuck a pick in there like this and grabbed it, pulled it up, and then it should just pull right off, and then we can just shove the new one back on that line. Alright, so now that the new fuel filter is installed, the last thing we're going to check is the air filter, or the muffler spark arrestor. Now this usually, if you have an issue where it's really bogging and it won't rev up, then it's almost always going to be this. So what happens is there's a little screen in there, and it gets clogged up with all carbon deposits. So what you can do to clean it out is get a torch and burn all the carbon off, or I even just used a wire brush and that freed it up last time I did this. Alright, so once you remove the two screws, you're going to pull that back, and then this whole thing you can just take out. So it looks like this is not clogged up really at all, which is good because I didn't I cleaned this out not too long ago. But if yours is, you can't see through it, and you'll be able to tell if it has a lot of carbon deposits, I used a wire brush and that cleaned it up, but you can use a torch to burn everything off, or you can even replace it. They're pretty cheap too. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this back in, everything back together, then put the air filter on, and then reassemble all the plastics. Alright, so now everything's back together. I got the new air filters installed, so let's go see how this thing runs. Alright, this thing is running pretty good now. Feels a lot more powerful than it was before. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching.